They said he'd never walk again. 16 months later, he was holding the US Open trophy. This is the story of how a broken man became a legend. February 2nd, 1949. A foggy Texas morning. Ben Hogan and his wife Valerie are driving home to Fort Worth after tournaments in Phoenix. Visibility is terrible. Hogan slows to under 20 miles per hour as they cross a narrow bridge near Van Horn. At 8:30 a.m., 4 headlights appear through the fog. A Greyhound bus, 20,000 pounds of steel traveling at 50 miles per hour, is passing a truck in the oncoming lane. There's nowhere to go. In the split second before impact, Hogan releases the steering wheel and throws himself across his wife's body. The collision is catastrophic. The Cadillac's engine shoots through the front seat like a cannonball. The steering wheel impales the driver's seat, right where Hogan had been sitting moments before. His instinct to protect Valerie saved both their lives, but the price is devastating. Hogan suffers a fractured collarbone, a double fracture of the pelvis, a broken ankle, a broken rib, and severe damage to his left eye. Valerie helps pull her husband from the mangled wreckage. The bus careens into an embankment. Ben Hogan, the best golfer in the world, might not survive the week. An ambulance takes 90 minutes to arrive from El Paso. Hogan loses and regains consciousness multiple times during transport. At the Hotel Dieu hospital, doctors set his bones and place him in plaster casts. At first, his condition improves. Newspapers that initially reported him dead now celebrate his heroism. Hogan's greatest win, saving his gal Val. Thousands of get-well messages pour in. The cold, aloof Ben Hogan is suddenly America's hero. Then, 16 days after the crash, everything changes. Blood clots from his shattered left leg are traveling toward his lungs, threatening a pulmonary embolism that will kill him. Doctors try blood thinners. They fail. He's losing weight, losing strength, slipping away. Emergency surgery is the only option. The family contacts the Mayo Clinic. They're told the best vascular surgeon in America is Dr. Alton Ochsner in New Orleans. But a rainstorm grounds all commercial flights. In desperation, Hogan's brother Royal calls El Paso Air Force Base. Hogan had served as a captain in the Army Air Force during World War II. The commanding officer doesn't hesitate. A B-29 bomber is dispatched to New Orleans, returning hours later with Dr. Ochsner on board. The surgery lasts 2 hours. Ochsner ligates Hogan's inferior vena cava, essentially tying off the main vein, returning blood from his legs to prevent future clots. It's a brutal procedure that saves his life but guarantees permanent damage. Hogan's legs will never be the same. But here's what the doctors didn't understand. Ben Hogan had been fighting impossible odds his entire life. 9-year-old Ben Hogan stands in his family's Fort Worth home. His father, Chester Hogan, a blacksmith whose trade has been destroyed by the automobile, points a .38 revolver at his chest and pulls the trigger. Some reports say Ben witnessed the suicide. Others say he heard the gunshot from another room. What's certain is this: the trauma never leaves him, and from that moment forward, nothing in life seems impossible to overcome. The family plunges into poverty. Ben's older brother Royal becomes the Rock, delivering supplies, selling newspapers, pumping gas. 9-year-old Ben joins him, selling papers at the train station. Then he hears caddies at Glen Garden Country Club make 65 cents per round. He walks 7 miles each way to carry bags. When the caddies aren't working, they can hit balls on the range. Hogan hits more balls than anyone else. He's not naturally talented. In fact, he's terrible, small, scrawny, plagued by a vicious hook. But he has something else: a rage to prove everyone wrong. At age 15, he loses a caddy tournament playoff to Byron Nelson when Nelson holds a miraculous 30-foot putt. From that moment on, Hogan is obsessed with surpassing Nelson. At 17, Hogan turns professional. He has to. His family needs money. But professional golf in the 1930s is brutal. He enters tournaments with $5 in his pocket and withdraws in humiliation. He goes broke in 1930, goes broke again in 1931, again in 1933, again in 1934. Most people would quit, but Hogan's wife Valerie refuses to let him give up. "You're so close," she tells him. She becomes his secretary, treasurer, and wardrobe mistress, traveling with him, managing their dwindling funds, believing when no one else does. In January 1938, they're down to $86 at the Oakland Open. They park Hogan's car across the street from their hotel to save the parking fee. The next morning, the wheels have been stolen. Byron Nelson gives him a ride to the course. Hogan finishes sixth, earning $285, enough to keep going. Then comes the Hershey 4-ball. Hogan and Vic Gazy win. It's Hogan's first professional victory, 10 years after he turned pro. The breakthrough unleashes something. By 1940, Hogan is the tour's leading money winner. By 1946, he wins his first major, the PGA Championship. By 1948, he dominates golf completely, winning 10 tournaments. Between August 1945 and the car crash, Ben Hogan wins 37 tournaments. He's the best golfer on the planet. And then a Greyhound bus destroys everything. April 1st, 1949. Nearly 2 months after the accident, Hogan leaves the hospital. He returns to Fort Worth by train, unable to walk without a walker. Doctors tell him he'll never play competitive golf again. His legs are permanently damaged, blood flow restricted, muscles atrophied, constant pain and swelling. But Hogan has spent his entire life being told what he can't do. "People have always been telling me what I can't do," he says. "I guess I have wanted to show them. That's been one of my driving forces all my life." By September 1949, just 7 months after nearly dying, Hogan travels by ship to England as non-playing captain of the U.S. Ryder Cup team. The Americans win 7-5. When Hogan returns to Fort Worth, he begins hitting full shots on the range. The pain is excruciating, but it lessens over time. On December 10th, he plays 18 holes at Colonial Country Club for the first time since the crash, using a scooter between shots. 2 weeks later, he registers for the Los Angeles Open in January 1950, his return to competition. The golf world doesn't know what to expect. Hogan opens with a 73 at Riviera Country Club, his legs wrapped in bandages from groin to ankle. Then he shoots 69, 69, 69 to finish at 4 under par, tied with Sam Snead. In the 18-hole playoff, exhaustion overtakes him. He shoots 76 and loses to Snead's 72. Sports writer Grantland Rice writes, "His legs simply were not strong enough to carry his heart any longer." But Hogan knows something the world doesn't. He's just getting started. June 1950. The U.S. Open at Marion Golf Club in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. Hogan arrives with a grueling pre-round routine. He wakes at 5 a.m., soaks in a hot bath with Epsom salts for over an hour, wraps his legs in elastic bandages from groin to ankles, then begins a 4-hour practice session to loosen his damaged muscles. This is his life now, hours of preparation for what used to be effortless. The tournament format requires 36 holes on the final day, Saturday. For Hogan, this is a brutal test. Thursday's opening round, 72, 2 over par. Friday, 69, playing through severe cramping. He trails the leader by 2 shots heading into Saturday's double round. Saturday morning. Hogan shoots 72 in the morning round, legs cramping but manageable. He's still 2 strokes behind 1946 U.S. Open champion Lloyd Mangrum. Then comes the afternoon round. The round that will define whether Ben Hogan's comeback is real or just a desperate fantasy. As Hogan makes the turn, the pain intensifies. His front 9, 37. It's enough to take the lead as his competitors falter. But now, with 9 holes remaining, 13,000 spectators are following him. They sense they're witnessing something historic. On the 12th hole, after hitting his drive and climbing the hill to his ball, Hogan visibly staggers and nearly collapses. "My legs had turned to stone," he later recalls. Hogan clings to a 2-shot lead on the 15th hole. 3-putt. Bogey. The lead shrinks. On the 17th hole, he finds the greenside bunker. Bogey. Now he needs par on the final hole just to force a playoff. The 18th at Marion, 458 yards uphill, par 4. One of the most demanding finishing holes in golf. Hogan finds the fairway with his drive, but he still has 213 yards to the green. He removes a 1-iron from his bag. Before the tournament, someone asked why he wasn't carrying a 7-iron. Hogan's response, "There aren't any 7-iron shots out there." That's how precisely he prepares. Hogan sets up over the ball. His legs are screaming. Every muscle fiber in his body is begging him to stop. Behind him, Life magazine photographer Hy Peskin braces his camera on another spectator's shoulder. Hogan swings. The one iron launches into the Pennsylvania sky, flying 213 yards and landing 40 feet from the hole. Peskin's shutter clicks at the exact moment of Hogan's follow-through. The photograph will become one of the most iconic images in sports history. Hogan two putts for par. He's tied with Lloyd Mangrum and George Fazio at 7 over 287. There will be an 18-hole playoff on Sunday. That night at the Barclay Hotel in Philadelphia, Hogan gets the first good night's sleep he's had in days. Sunday morning, rejuvenated, he arrives at Marion for the playoff. Mangrum birdies the second hole. Hogan falls behind, but he never trails again. On the 17th hole, 50 feet from the cup, Hogan rolls in a birdie putt that establishes a 4-shot lead. Final scores: Hogan 69, Mangrum 73, Fazio 75. Just 16 months after doctors said he'd never walk again, Ben Hogan is the US Open champion. It's immediately hailed as the greatest comeback in sports history. They call it the Miracle at Marion. But here's the thing about miracles. They're not luck. They're the result of relentless, obsessive work that most people can't comprehend. Hogan had always been that way, isolating himself on practice ranges, hitting balls until they perfectly matched his vision, digging answers out of the dirt. The accident didn't create his determination. It simply revealed what had always been there. 4 years later, he won 3 majors in one season. That's not a comeback. That's not even a miracle. That's what happens when a man who has been fighting impossible odds his entire life finally gets the world's attention. They said he'd never walk again. He didn't just walk. He became immortal.